Welcome to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Agemy, powered by the Retirement Income Store and brought to you by Agemy Financial Strategies in Guilford, Connecticut and Denver, Colorado.
One day Jesus told the parable of a certain rich man. Now, a parable is an earthly story with a heavenly meaning. So Jesus is telling this earthly story to bring about a more spiritual truth behind it. And the illustration is that of a rich man whose land produced abundant crops, so abundant that the man decided that he was going to tear down his barns and build new barns that were bigger than the old barns in order to store all his crops, because he had such a bountiful, plentiful harvest. And then once he did all that, he filled all his crops up. He said, "Oh, now I can retire. I can eat, drink, and be merry because I have enough to last the rest of my life." And Jesus said, "What a fool," because to this very night, his soul's going to be required of him, because that's not what life is made up of. I'm Andrew Agemy.
And I'm Daniel Agemy, and you're listening to Financial Strategies. Today we're talking about who needs estate planning in 2023. And it is 2023. Happy New Year. Happy 2023.
Yeah.
Man, time sure goes by quick.
That's for sure. And that's I'm excited about this, because today's show, because we're always talking about exactly what this rich man was doing, right? We're talking about building up people's assets and having what they need to last the rest of their life. But today helps us be able to get our sights on that which is most important, because money is not important. What's important in life is relationships. And it's kind of interesting with this at the beginning of this parable, how Jesus was kind of provoked to talk about this, was that somebody came up to him and said, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the inheritance among me." And unfortunately, too many times, families are split up over inheritances, just like in this case. And then Jesus went on to say how inheritance is not a big deal. And I find it very interesting in this example of this parable, how the rich man, it doesn't say anything about his family. It just says he had enough to live the rest of his life. He didn't say that he was passing it on or whatnot. I think of the scripture, and I believe it's Ecclesiastes, that says, what a grievous evil, where a man lives his whole life and there's nothing left for his friend, or for his son rather. And when we're talking about finances, we're talking about estate planning, we're talking about inheritance, we're talking about legacy. There's a lot involved with that overall. And I'm excited because we're talking about this in my book that's going to be coming out in 2023, God, Family, and Wall Street, and talk about the legacy aspect of people passing on to the next generation or to others, right? I mean, some people don't have heirs to pass on to in particular. They don't have sons and daughters or whatnot. But that doesn't mean that they can't pass on legacies. That's why, various cancer clinics and hospitals and so forth, right? Because people give money to those as a legacy to be able to pass on. But that's what today is talking about, is what's going to happen with all that you have. And one of the things that I want to make sure that you and our listening audience understand is that, the amount of time, money, and effort that you put forth in putting forth and taking care of your end matters, shall we say, your estate planning and all that kind of thing, is nothing compared to the time, money, and effort that those after you will have to put forth if you don't take care of it during your lifetime.
I think there's another parallel we can draw here, which is the farmer had a surplus, and he went and he built bigger barns. And it, like you said, it doesn't say anything about a plan for his family, a plan for anything. And he was going to go eat, drink, and be merry. From 2009 till now, that's kind of what's happened to people's 401ks and assets, right? You just buy anything.
Right.
And it gets bigger and bigger. And then you have all this money, and people say, well, let's just let it keep growing. Let's just the same. No thought behind it, no plan behind it. Let's eat, drink, and be merry. And what was will continue, right?
Right.
And just like in that parallel, why are you building bigger barns? You just expect everything to continue the same way that it has, and just spending everything you have, eat, drink, and be merry. We're getting a taste of, the next couple decades may not be the same
Right.
as what we've experienced from 2009. Like I saw a memo the other day that came over the desk, and is talking about like people's, okay, the Fed's behavior over that period of time. It's been highly
Mm,
stimulative. Do we think that will continue? Right? Inflation, it's been dormant. The economic outlook, it's been positive, right?
right.
Um, people's mood, optimism, right? Optimism is great, but is optimism what keeps you in retirement?
Right.
Um, right? Buyers, they're eager, right? The key worry is FOMO, right? The fear of
Yeah.
missing out. So we have all these kinds of things. I thought this was really interesting. Risk aversion, it's non-existent, right?
Right. Right.
And you could keep going down these
No
things.
fear. No fear.
The
Right.
credit window has been wide open, right? If any company or any person needs money, they can just go and borrow money and continue the same thing. And if you think these things are going to stay the same, financing has been plentiful, interest rates have been the lowest they've ever been, the yield spread, right? You could keep going on and on. But the point here is, when we're thinking about estate planning and we're thinking about legacy, these are things that all mix together. It's more than just planning. I want this account to be transferred on to this person, right?
Right.
There's a much bigger decision. Hopefully we can go through some of that. Um, what do you want your legacy to be? It's time to start thinking about, what do you want your legacy to be, and planning for the legacy. Purpose, right, versus partying, or purpose versus performance.
Right. And that's exactly right, Daniel. I want to let you know in our listening audience that you're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Agemy, because people don't know what people don't know. So we're trying to educate you to be able to make smart decisions about what's going on. Today's topic is who needs estate planning in 2023. And we're delving in that. And we're glad to be able to give you. We have a paper that we've designed just for that, and it's called exactly what today's show is: Who Needs Estate Planning in 2023. So if you'd like that paper, please call us at 800-725-7616. We'd be glad to get it out to you at no obligation, no charge. Or contact us on the web at our website. You see it right, but see, if you're watching on our YouTube channel, right there behind Daniel is our name, AGEMY Financial Strategies, right? AGEMY.com. And you can contact us through there, and we'd be glad to be able to get that to you that way. Again, estate planning for 2023. Ask for it by name. Daniel, this is a great show that we're looking at, and being able to talk about getting everything in order. There's one of the first things I think people need to do when they're thinking about their estate planning. Um, well, actually, I'm going to go to a different track here. Some people may say that I don't have an estate, I don't have anything, but that's not true. As far as the state you live in goes, you do have an estate, because if you have a bank account, you have a car in your name, you have anything, unless you're totally off the grid and no sign of anything, maybe you don't have a estate. There aren't too many people like that today, but you have a bank account or anything, you have an estate. And one of the jobs, the whole idea of when you die, is that the job of probate is to go to make sure that you paid off your creditors, all your creditors are paid off, and that your estate is wrapped up in a nice package with a nice bow put on top, and it's filed away as your estate having been settled and taken care of, and nothing needing to happen in the future. Well, if your plans, if your paperwork is not in order properly, that can linger on for years. It can mean that you're going to pay a lot of money in taxes or probate fees if it's not done properly. There's a lot of time and money and effort associated with when you don't do it, to those who are left after you, to be able to pick up the pieces from that. And that's what we're trying to encourage you, is to recognize that you do have an estate. The estate needs to be taken care of. if you have family, well, you need to be able to take care of your family in regard to that. And most people who do have family, they want their money to pass on, their worldly possessions pass on to the next generation. The idea that Jesus was talking about here in this parable we talked about was that, the money wasn't the biggest thing. The biggest thing is what you've done with your life, is the spiritual realm. But what we have, our money represents what we've done with our physical life. It represents our career and that kind of thing. And it's not that it's most important, because the most important thing is the relationships that we created. And when we're talking about relationships, that's where it's important to be able to have a conversation with those that you love regarding how you want things to happen at the end of your life, right? Um, when we're talking about estate planning, there's basically four basic documents that are involved with it. One of them are for when you actually die. Three of them are for the end of your life while you're still alive. And we're going to leave you, we're going to tantalize you with that and salt your oats, so to speak, with that. And we're going to talk about those four items when we come back from break. But I want to let you know that you're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Agemy, because people don't know what people don't know. We have a book that we're giving away today to go along with today's show, because when we're talking about estate planning, thinking the end of your life and that kind of thing, we thought that this would be a great book to give to you today. Understanding Specially Designed Life Insurance Contracts. Kind of interesting, because we're always talking about using true life insurance for your life and during your life, but there is a death benefit associated with it, and a way to be able to add inheritance, add a legacy, financial legacy, be able to pass on into future generations. So we'd love to give you this book for free to the next 5 callers at 800-725-7616, 800-725-7616, and we'll be right back after this.
I'm David Scranton, founder of the Retirement Income Store. If you're in or near retirement, are you certain you have the right retirement plan in place? Do you want to help ensure your nest egg will last you all throughout retirement? Take our retirement review quiz and find out in 5 minutes or less if you're doing everything you can to achieve a more successful retirement.
Visit us online at agemy.com. That's AGEMY.com. Welcome back to Financial Strategies with Andrew Agemy in Connecticut and Daniel Agemy in Colorado.
So Daniel, I'm reminded of one time I was doing a workshop and I was talking about estate planning, talking about how important it is to have people's beneficiaries lined up properly, how they should do audits on their beneficiaries on all their accounts to make sure they're proper. Because I had heard about people who had died and their ex-spouses were still on as their beneficiary. And a lady in the crowd raised her hand and said, "That's me. That's me. I did that. I am so happy my husband died. My ex-husband died because I got all the money." I'm Andrew Agemy.
And I'm Daniel Agemy, and you're listening to Financial Strategies. Today we're talking about who needs estate planning in 2023. And there's a lot to think about when we're thinking about estate planning. Some people may just think, oh, well, that's something I'll get around to. But people die, people are born, things happen, the world moves, it doesn't wait for anyone. And that's a perfect example where it's probably something, I'll get around to, I'll get around to, I'll get around to. Now, that was a huge benefit for the lady that got the money, but the
Right.
kids of her ex or his new spouse or whoever it may be was probably not very happy about that. And then you're going into lawsuits and
Right.
all kinds of things after that. So checking beneficiaries, that's a huge thing, right?
Right. It is.
Checking
And
old 401ks, rolling over your old 401ks to an IRA where you have more control over it, right?
right. Right. Yes, indeed.
Um, having TODs established, a transfer on death
Right.
on individual accounts. So it has a beneficiary and it goes to who you want it to go to.
Exactly. All this is important stuff. Making sure your beneficiary arrangements are right. That's part of the reasons why people put a will together, is to be able to make sure that their money goes to the right places. However, a will only addresses the money that does not have beneficiaries on it. So if you have life insurance, if you have 401ks, IRAs, annuities, these kinds of things, or accounts that have TOD, transfer on death, or POD, paid on deaths, on them, those are not going to go through the will. to whoever your will says. They're going to go straight to whomever you have put down as your beneficiary on that. And that can be good sometimes, that can be bad sometimes. But the point is, you need to make sure that you're doing it the way you want to do it. That's the point. You can do it however you want. You can put your estate as the beneficiary, then it will go through the will. But there's problems with that, especially with 401ks, IRAs, because when it hits the estate is going to pay tax on it. And if you have $1 million IRA, they're going to pay a ton of income tax, and then it's going to be divvied out to the people in your will. And that I've seen that happen before with clients of mine, and they just spent the money within a year or two. The money was gone, and unfortunately, that's what happens. That's the national statistics for inheritances, that they're gone in a year or two. But so it's important to make sure that you have your beneficiary arrangements right. Do a beneficiary audit on your accounts and see, oh, is this really what I want? Especially if you've gotten remarried or whatever the case may be, check to make sure your beneficiaries are in the right order.
So before we go to the break, you teased the folks listening, and you said there's 4 documents that people need for estate planning. Because if we break down estate planning, it's more than just passing on your assets. With the beneficiaries, we're talking about passing on assets, but thinking about your legacy. What do you want your legacy? And it's also while you're living, right? Because there's health directives and things like that. So
Right.
what are these 4 documents you're talking about?
Okay, so during the will is the one document that comes into play once you die. Of these 4, 3 of them are for your lifetime. 1 of them is for your death. The will is for your death. Then there comes like the health directives. Health directives are things that say, sometimes health directives and healthcare power of attorney are in the same thing, but those things basically give somebody the authority to talk to doctors. If you're in a coma, they have the ability to talk to the doctors about what your treatment will be, and be able to sign off on that and that kind of thing. So that's sometimes that's 1 document, sometimes that's 2 documents doing a similar thing but different. But then there's the regular power of attorney, financial power of attorney, that gives somebody the ability to write your checks or take your required minimum distribution, if you're in a coma or whatever the case may be, pay your bills, that sort of thing. So those things are all necessary during your life. You're alive, you're breathing, but maybe you're not able to handle your matters properly. Now, then once you pass away, well, the power of attorney goes away, health directives go away, and the will takes over from that standpoint. So those are the 4 documents. Now with that, sometimes there's a 5th document, which are trusts, living trust, revocable trust. There's all kinds of trust. There's 2 kinds of trust: revocable and irrevocable. Maybe we'll get to that in a minute or 2. But all of these documents have and do different things, and some people need them all. Most people need 4 of them. Not everybody needs trusts. We'll talk about that, but these are the kinds of things that people need, and they don't realize it, or they have a very outdated will, and they don't have today. A lot of people don't have power of attorney and health directives and that kind of thing. So that's all important. But before we move forward, I want to let you know that you're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Agemy. Today's show topic is estate planning in 2023. Who needs it? You need it. We got this paper that we'd love to give to you. Call us at 800-725-7616 for your copy. Ask for it by name, Estate Planning in 2023. We'd love to put it in your hands. You listen to Financial Strategies. Daniel, we have trusts, living trusts, or revocable trusts is what they're called, because they're in place while you're alive and you can change them. And then there's irrevocable trust. You're familiar with irrevocable trust, being able to control the money from the grave kind of thing is what those things allow, or and even a revocable living will becomes irrevocable once you die. What would be the benefits of tell the audience the benefits of controlling money from the grave?
Well, This goes back to legacy, right? And what do you want? What do you want to happen? Who do you want to give things to? Do you want to establish a trust that will basically be you in death, right? Your
Right.
wishes, you're in death. So there's a few things, and there's another one that you can do before you die, which would be the charitable donation trust, right?
Right.
Where some people who have a lot of money, they're able to put money into one of these, and then they're able to not have to deal with the tax consequences as long as they're giving it away. And then when they die, it goes to the charities. But you set up a trust. Typically, typically these are for people who have more assets, right? Because they can be expensive, especially to get it
Right.
done the right way and put all your assets inside of it. So everyone, this is usually, I think, what people are thinking about when they think about estate planning is like expensive trusts,
Right.
right?
Hmm.
That need a lot of work. And that's why we're going through this, is because estate planning is much, much more than having an expensive, irrevocable trust
Right.
where you are it's owning your assets, or it's um, designed so that your wishes on death can be executed by a trustee.
Right.
Some people use them for um, funding, maybe charities or things like that that they care about. Some of them use them to pass on money to third and fourth generations. Some people use them for all different reasons. Um, People use them to get around inheritance taxes, right?
Right.
Estate
Right.
taxes. So, so to get into the nitty gritty, you really it has to be uh, built for your individual needs.
Right.
But that's, I think, where people get tripped up thinking about estate planning as a trust, and it's not. There's all these things, like you said, about three
Right.
of the four documents are
Hmm.
needed while you're alive.
Yeah.
And in the wills and things like that, you have spent a lot of time over your life um, planning your legacy, right?
Right.
There's people, there's things, there's causes that you care a lot about, and you spend a lot of time working on getting your barns in order, right? Your
Right.
fields and barns in order, so that you can carry on a legacy even after your passing.
Right.
And um, in the earlier stages of life, it was a lot different, right? It was thinking about if something happened to you, what would happen to the kids,
Right.
right? Who you
Exactly.
didn't want a court to make that decision. And
Right.
so that was thinking about what's going to happen to the kids, what's going to happen to how are they going to be taken care of, these kinds of things. So it changes as you go through different phases of life.
Yeah.
But those are all very, very important things that everyone needs to think about. If you have children, if you
Yeah.
have a life, right?
Right.
You have to see who's going to help you make decisions if you're in a coma or you're not capable of making those decisions. Who's going to be your power of attorney? These kinds of things. So that's why this paper we put together, it lays this stuff out, I think, is so important for people to get a copy of, because it's really establishing what these documents are. And you can ask yourself, do I have these? Do I need to get them updated? Right?
Right. Right. Good point. Good point, Daniel. We're typically talking to people in and close to retirement, but especially those who are younger who have children, or maybe they're raising a grandchild, right? And the point is, you need to have your will set up properly to be to have somebody to take care of the grandchild or the child should you pass away, right? Somebody that can raise them, because if you don't say who you want to raise the children, well, the state is going to determine who that is by statute. They're not going to just pull a name out of the hat, but by statute, it says how they choose somebody to raise that child. But then there's also the people who are handling the money, being the custodian of the money for the child from that standpoint. And when that comes to that, I recommend one person to raise the child and to do that, and another person to be able to be handling the money from that aspect. So a lot of different things to face and to look at and to delve into from that standpoint. Well, you're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Agemy. It's time for us to take another break. We love to give you this book. Today's book that we're giving out is Understanding Specially Designed Life Insurance Contracts from our friend John Moriarty. And like he said earlier, is that, a lot of times we talk about life insurance for the life benefits of life insurance, but there's also death benefits that can help you be able to do things for the next generation on a tax-free basis. We have a story coming up of one of our clients that was able to do that and worked out phenomenally for him. But this is a book that be able to help you. Easy read. Call for it. Next 5 callers at 800-725-7616. Next 5 first-time callers, 800-725-7616. We'll be right back after this.
History tells us the market goes up and the market goes down. What would you do if you lost half of your retirement savings? It's time to make the shift to steady, reliable retirement income. And where do you go? The Retirement Income Store. Log on to agemy.com for your free retirement review. That's AGEMY.com. The Retirement Income Store, where retirees go for income.
Welcome back to Financial Strategies with Andrew Agemy in Connecticut and Daniel Agemy in Colorado.
So I'm reminded when we're talking about estate planning of a client of ours that, was a great guy and was starting to turn old enough to get his required minimum distributions. And when in that, I said, "Hey, Jim, you're getting these required minimum distributions. You don't need them. You have enough coming in from Social Security and other venues to be able to take care of your needs. Let's take this required minimum distribution, buy life insurance for it. And then, when you pass away, well, it can go to your wife or it can go to your kids on a tax-free basis, build a legacy for you from that standpoint." He thought that'd be a great idea. So he qualified for the absolute best rates. Now, the thing about this situation that's so odd is that within just a few short years, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 years, the guy went from perfect health. Here's what happened. He served in Vietnam. What happened in Vietnam? Well, they sprayed the guys in Vietnam with Agent Orange, and Agent Orange caught up with him in his elder years, and he has passed away at this point. Got Parkinson's disease and has now passed away in just a few short years. That money being able to pass on to his wife now on a tax-free basis, which she is then planning to be able to pass it on to her children and grandchildren from that standpoint. I'm Andrew Agemy.
I'm Daniel Agemy, and you're listening to Financial Strategies. Today, we're talking about who needs estate planning in 2023. And Happy New Year. Happy 2023. What is estate planning, right? It's different than what people think it may be. You're talking about kind of even more than just estate planning. What you're talking about right now has to do more with legacy planning.
Right.
What do you want your financial assets to give legacy? Is it to be able to help your grandkids? Is it be able to help a charity that you care about, a cause that you care about? Is it to help your spouse? Is it to help your kids? Right.
Right.
So what's the rest of the story?
Well, the rest of the story is that that we're moving forward with that, and that's going to be able to propagate itself with the next generations. She's giving the wife is giving some of the money now to her 2 boys, and her 2 boys have kids, and so that's going to be passed on toward them from that standpoint, and it's going to be able to help take care of college education, or if they want to start businesses or those kinds of things for the kids, and do things that for the grandkids, do things that the sons weren't able to do on their own, and add to that, because they're working hard raising families and creating a career for themselves. But this is going to give them a little bit extra boost. The mother says, hey, I want to see them spend it while I'm alive, and passing it on to them now, which I think is a great idea.
So you've said an awful lot, right? That when you're talking with people and they have money, they have RMDs, they have money that they want to set aside for their children, their grandchildren. Um, you know, this kind of legacy planning, a life insurance policy, etc., is a permission slip to spend, right, your assets.
Right.
And if we go back to the original parable, right, you're not just eating, drinking, and be merry. You're
Right.
doing that with the legacy plan in place,
Right.
or you can do that. Some people still don't spend their money,
Right. Right.
but it's not just a party, right? There's a plan. There's the purpose
Right.
behind what you're doing.
Yeah.
And it's able to give people a lot more confidence, um, because the old saying of when I write my last check, I want it to bounce,
Right.
right? You
Uh-huh.
don't have to plan it down that closely. You can you can have enough income that you need to have your life, and then also be able to pass on a big legacy. But this takes planning. This takes estate planning. This you need to know what you want to happen. You
Right.
need to know um, what you want that legacy to be, and then you can build a plan to get there.
Right.
And that starts well before you're on death's door.
Right.
It needs to start before that. It needs to start in 2023, right?
Right, exactly. And I know anybody that has on their bucket list, I want to live my life and I want to go in a convalescent home and die in a convalescent home. So that's part of the aspect what we're talking about here. I mean, as far as what to do, you need to have conversations with your family, with your loved ones about how do you want to be treated? Should you need care? Most people want to stay home, and that's great. And I want people to stay home. I had the privilege, of seeing my grandmother stay at home. My mother took care of my grandmother, and then my siblings and I took care of my mother, and they were able to die at home, and that's a good thing. But it takes money to be able to do that. And that's where all this stuff comes into play, is taking your money, making sure that you're using it for the right purposes. That's how I'm defining estate planning here, is making sure that your money is being used for the right purposes at the end of your life, and that when you pass away, that it's going to continue to be used in that fashion. If you just picked up listening to us, you're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Agemy. This father and son team is here to be able to help you, to educate you, to be able to help you to understand what you don't know so that you can make smart decisions. We have a paper that we'd like to give you to be able to help you understand more things about this. It's just called estate planning. This is about mistakes that people make when they're doing estate planning, to make sure that you don't make those mistakes. What's the easiest way and the cheapest way to learn is by listening to and following, learning from the mistakes of other people. And this paper, estate planning, will give you that opportunity. And it's different than the one we were giving out the first half of the show. So call us for 800-725-7616 to get your free copy of that, or contact us on the web at agemy.com. And if you're just joining us, you can view this podcast or on our YouTube channel, or listen to any place that we listen to podcasts, or any of our radio shows via podcast or YouTube channel, and you'll be able to see that there. So Daniel, with this estate planning, it's a lot of different areas, right? It's inheritance. It's making sure the documents are all in order. It's legacy planning. That's how we're describing all of this. And it's something that, it's not just a one-time set and forget. Sometimes it needs to be massaged as we go, like we talked about, looking at beneficiaries, that kind of thing. What can you add to that?
Well, if we go back to this story, there's enough things that happen. There's enough negative emotion. There's enough pain involved. You just lost somebody you care about.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need even more stress and pain and agony, right?
Yeah.
Because there wasn't a plan. We didn't know what they wanted us to do with with their body. We didn't know We didn't know how they want us. There's plenty of assets, but we didn't know what they wanted to do with the assets. We didn't know,
Right.
did they want something named after? So like these kind of conversations, these kind of planning, we see it often where there wasn't good planning,
Right.
and the amount that the executor has to go through, the amount that the family has to go through, the stress and the pain that they have to go through because it wasn't planned out ahead of time, or there wasn't beneficiaries. The beneficiaries were wrong. These kinds of things. You don't want to put the people you care about through that. So um, that's another reason to think about the people you care about, not only with the finances, but
Right.
also what they're going to have to go through. They're already dealing with your passing.
Right.
How can you help them make things simpler, um, so that things go smoothly, right? It's a lot easier to
Right.
plan ahead than it
Right.
is to have to fix it after it's already messed up.
Right, right, exactly. And when you're talking about that, I think of the situation. It's been kind of uncanny this year how many clients we've had that have passed away, and how many couples have passed away. As a matter of fact, I think we had at least three couples that have passed away, separate times, but all during this year. And the one situation, people need to make sure they have financial people that know what's going on, because in the one situation, we had, there was it was a couple. They had, for our illustration, we're going to use a son, and the couple had each other as their primary beneficiaries, and the son was the secondary beneficiary on that. And what happened was the mother had cancer, and the father died before the mother died of cancer. And then the mother died within a few weeks of that. So what that showed was that the father, when he died, the mother was the beneficiary of that account. So it went into her estate. So the son was not able to get that directly from that. It was a rigmarole to make sure that the son got that after the mother passed away. Now, the mother's accounts, the father had already passed away, so the secondary beneficiary kicked into play, and the son became the beneficiary of that and got that money fine. But with the fathers, it had to go through some extra steps. And the thing about this is that it's important to have financial people that understand these things before it happens, that will take away the pain of those situations. We have a lot of other aspects and mistakes that people have made that we can probably go through. But right now, we need to take a break. And you've been listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Agemy, because people don't know what people don't know. And how will they know without a teacher? Well, listen, we have a book that we want to have you read and be able to understand a little bit more. It's called Understanding Specially Designed Life Insurance. Life insurance is twofold. It's for you during your lifetime. That's why it's called life insurance. But there's also a death benefit associated with it that can help your heirs and spouse and whatnot when you pass away. So we'd love to put this in your hand. It's an easy read book to the next 5 first time callers at 800 725 7616. 800 725 7616. Call now.
I'm David Scranton, founder of the Retirement Income Store. If you're in or near retirement, are you certain you have the right retirement plan in place? Do you want to help ensure your nest egg will last you all throughout retirement? Take our retirement review quiz and find out in 5 minutes or less if you're doing everything you can to achieve a more successful retirement.
Visit us online at agemy.com. That's AGEMY.com. Welcome back to Financial Strategies with Andrew Agemy in Connecticut and Daniel Agemy in Colorado.
Learning from the mistakes that people make when it comes to estate planning. Well, when I think of that situation, I think of a situation that we see all the time, right? Where people will say, oh, they have 2 children or more, and they say, well, I'm going to leave it to my eldest son, let's say my eldest daughter, whoever it is, and they're going to make sure that the others get their piece of it. Oh, my, what a tangled web we weave. I'm Andrew Agemy.
And I'm Daniel Agemy, and you're listening to Financial Strategies. Today we're talking about estate planning, legacy planning, and what you need to do to pass on the legacy that you want instead of it making the decision for you. And yeah, that is something we see all the time where they try to simplify things, right? The parents or whoever it is try to simplify things, and they'll say, "Well, there's 6 kids, so it'll just go to one, and then they'll divvy it up." I trust them, and people ask us to do that. I've had plenty of people ask me, "I'm just going to leave it to the one, and they'll divvy it up," and I say, "No, no, no. We've seen this happen too many times. It doesn't work out. Not even because that person's a bad person. You don't want to put
No.
that stress on them. People get
Right.
weird when there's money involved, and there's relationships broken, there's trust broken, there's all kinds of things, not even because anybody did anything wrong, but
Right.
because people feel cheated, or they well, dad and mom liked me the best, so I should have got more, right? Like, it could be something as weird as that because it wasn't in writing.
Oh, yeah, I've seen a lot of different situations. I have some two sisters that are clients that the brother basically cheated them out of the whole inheritance, and they've been fighting over it for years and years and years, and the sisters are going bankrupt while the brother's getting this fat and happy because of how he was able to manipulate the father's estate. But yeah, these things are terrible because what happens then, right? Let's say somebody has an IRA, and they leave it to, son number one, right? To give to, let's just say there's 2 kids, right? Son number one gets it, and son number one has to give a portion to kid number two, right? Son number two. And there's an IRA. Well, now who pays the taxes on that? I mean, if the son number one can extend that out and pay that, take that out over a 10-year period of time and just pay a little bit of taxes every year. But if son number two wants his money, they got to pay inheritance taxes now. And if son number one is 66, 65 years old, it's going to mess up his Medicare payments probably. And it's just, creates such a tangled web, as I had said earlier. And then if they have non-qualified assets, some monies that have partial tax to them, but also have some tax to them, then and they get, let's say it's $100,000, and each one gets 50, right? No, well, you got to pay the tax on it first, and then so it's just, and it becomes the son number one ends up being pushed into a very high tax bracket because all this money has to be paid tax on in order to get it to son number two, and it's just a real mess. Whereas if it's just made son number one gets 50%, son number two gets 50%, right? Then it's clean. Each one can decide how they want to do it and take it and make it a much more palatable situation for both parties.
Yeah, and that's something that comes to mind too with the story you told earlier with the RMDs, because using the RMDs to purchase a life insurance policy, for example, right?
Right.
If that's designed properly, and that's what that book we're giving away is about. But if that's designed properly, then what ends up happening is you have a lot of cash available to use for what you need it for. So
right.
you can use it in life, and it can potentially provide things like long-term care type benefits, right?
Right.
Um, but then it's taking the money out of the qualified and it's putting it into a vehicle that will transfer the money to beneficiaries, and it will transfer it to them tax free.
Right.
And so what ends up happening is these new rules with IRAs. You have to get all the money out of them in 10 years,
Mm-hmm.
unless it's a spouse. But what we've seen, especially in 2022, has been when one spouse dies, the other one has not lasted very long after that.
Mm-hmm.
It may be all the madness going on in the world. It may be a lot of things,
Right.
but this has been a heartbreaking thing where we see one die and then we see the next one die not long after.
Right.
And so if the money's being sent to the kids or the grandkids or whoever, they have to get that money out in 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And for some people, that might not be a problem. They might want the money out in 10 years, but some people want to use that for their retirement or to pass to their kids or their great grandkids or whatever that may be.
Right.
And so this is a way you take money out now, especially while both of you are alive, because you're in a lower tax bracket, and you put it into something like that, like a life insurance policy or something that will have benefits in death to the kids, and tax benefits to
Right.
whoever you want it to go to, right?
Right.
These are things that when we're talking about estate planning, we need to think about these kinds of things, because this doesn't just help transfer this stuff. This can actually provide
Mhm.
a huge legacy to whoever or whatever you want it to.
Exactly. And I've got something I want to tell. But first of all, I want to let you know, when they're listening to the audience, you're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Agemy. Today's topic is, who needs estate planning in 2023? Welcome to 2023. Here we are. It's time to look at your estate plan and make sure it's up to date. And we have a document, a book, a paper that we put together for today. It's called just Estate Planning: Mistakes That People Make with Estate Planning. You don't want to make those. So get this document. Call us at 800-725-7616 for your free copy of Estate Planning. Ask for it by name. Or you can contact us on our web at agemy.com, agemy.com, for your free copy. Daniel, when you're talking about this legacy and inheritance and passing wealth on to other generations, I think of Deuteronomy, the book of Deuteronomy, where God says, my people, through Moses, he says, my people will be the lenders and not the borrowers, right? And so what is that? The head and not the tail. When you think of an ethnic group who are lenders and not borrowers, who do you think of? You think of the Jewish people. And it's not that it's a slur, it's a promise, it's a blessing that God has done. And if you talk to Jewish people, they are very intent, many of them, on passing things on to the next generation, saving for the next generation, educating the next generation. And that's what we're talking here with these things. And when we're also talking about this with estate planning, I think of mistakes that people make. And I'm thinking of the one client that we had that many years ago, his father said, oh, I want to make sure my kids get this money okay. And what he did was he did a very foolish thing in retrospect. He didn't know it at the time. He didn't know what he didn't know, right? That's why we have Agemy we have financial strategies that Andrew and Daniel Agemy help people know what they don't know. What he did was he put each kid's name on his accounts. He set up 3 different accounts, put his kids' names on it. And he thought, well, that way when I die, they're just going to get the money automatically. Well, the problem that he didn't realize is that the stocks that he had in those accounts grew tremendously. So when he died with their names on it, the kids inherited that at his cost basis. So let's just say it was worth $100,000 each account when he died, and his cost basis was $5,000. Kids were paying tax on $95,000 because their names were on it. Whereas if he had died and they were just transfer on death or paid on death or beneficiaries, well, they would have inherited it at the 100,000 and not paid any tax on that. But he didn't know what he didn't know. And these are some of the mistakes that people make.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why we want to bring this to people's attention. We have the Hall of Shame. We see a lot of stuff that was done like that. That's good people trying to do good things for their kids. Let me put it in their names now. But there's a law that really helps you with stocks, transferring them and not having to pay taxes on it. It's a crazy law. I don't even know how. I don't even know. It's probably because Warren Buffett has billions and billions and billions of dollars that he's never going to pay tax on, because it will just transfer.
It's because all the politicians in DC got rich and they want to pass it on to the next generation without paying the tax. That's why they do that. It's benefited them.
There's a lot of lobby money behind that.
Yeah, it's all about benefiting the politicians. They have different health insurance than we do. They have different retirement plans than we do. They have different everything. It's all better, right? Yeah. Anyway, let's not get
who needs estate planning? Everybody needs estate planning, right? Everyone needs it. Now, it's different levels. If you are in certain income range, certain estate numbers, then you may need to get more. You may need to get deeper and start thinking about trusts and things like that. Mm-hmm. It can be from how you're using your RMDs. It can be looking at your beneficiaries. Something that some people may not even consider because they don't see the money is, if you have a pension or you have an annuity payment, and it's not for only your life, it's for your life in a certain period of time, you need to check beneficiaries on that too, because somebody's going to get the rest of the payments. If it's 30 years payments and you die in 20 years, somebody's going to get payments for 10 years. And you want to make sure the person you want. So The bank accounts, do you have some way to transfer those? Your non-qualified accounts, your annuities, your IRAs, your 401ks, your 403bs, do you have the proper beneficiaries on? Do you need to simplify it, right? Do you need to roll it into one IRA that you have control over? These are some things, right? The power of attorney. Do you have a power of attorney so that someone can help you make decisions if you're not capable of doing that? The health directives. This is a big one that people don't think about, and it could mean life or death, right? Because
Right.
someone can make those decisions. Besides, we have to find someone who can make a decision on this procedure or whatever it may be.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. These are things that need to be anticipated, thought through, and put down on paper, whether it's legal paper or it's a letter. Here's just another thing when we're talking about estate planning. I'm thinking about one couple that I was talking to once, and I said, "What would happen if your husband died?" And she got teary-eyed and was trying to think it through and got very emotional about the thing. And then the husband said, "No, you wouldn't. You would do this, and you would do this, and you would do this." And I said, "Okay, so what I want you to do, Mr. Client, is I want you to do a tape. I want you to record a message to your wife that she can listen to when you pass away, that she can get her head back together just the way she did now, because she's going to be all emotional like she was, and is just thinking about the situation. And a word from you will help her be able to move forward." So anyway, a lot of things to consider. We're glad to help you with that. Glad to help you with your estate planning concerns. If you'd like, give us a call, 800-725-7616. We're giving away this book. Boy, this day just went by so fast. Understanding Specially Designed Life Insurance will help you understand how to use life insurance for life purposes during your life, how to use it for death as well. And we'd love to put this in your hand to the next 5 callers. For first time 5 callers at 800-725-7616, 800-725-7616. And we'll look forward to talking with you again. Remember, an educated retiree is a stress-free retiree.